It's gonna be a super fun video. I hesitated to do it, but why not? What I spent my money on last month as a big law attorney and business owner. So this income will include multiple sources of income because yes, I work in big law, but I also have a business and have other streams of income coming in.
The caption of this video reads, "Dating as a Black woman, high earning." Let's get it.
I've talked a lot about this before and people didn't like it too much, like men in particular. But I do think it is a lot harder to date as a woman high earner. And
Hold on. I think there's a comment she's responding to here. So let's check out that comment there. It says, "You're amazing. Appreciate the transparency. Can you make a video on what dating is like when you're such a high earner?" And that's the context behind why she made this video, responding back to that comment. Let's check it out.
especially as a Black woman high earner. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that is the case, but generally speaking, it is harder to date. And in my experience, one thing that I have noticed is that men, when they come into your sphere, especially if you're someone who's not necessarily withdrawn or or quiet per se, right? Like you have opinions and they don't like that. Right. And some of them, they just want you to shut up and be quiet and just be behind them. And that's not me. But also others of them, they're just jealous. And obviously it's not like they're saying to you, "Oh, I'm jealous," but you can see that they're jealous because they'll make snide comments or they'll be or little things along those lines. Or some of them, I wouldn't attribute this one to jealousy, but just more so they want to be kept. They'll say "You're the one with all the money," and sometimes jokingly we're just okay, but that's not a funny joke if I don't know you. So I will say for those reasons, it is a lot harder, but also another reason it's harder in general, I think, is because once you are making above a certain amount, you usually have a certain kind of lifestyle. And if you want to maintain that lifestyle, but also include your significant other in that lifestyle, they do have to be making within that range, right? I'm not saying that I will only date someone who makes more than me. That's absolutely not the case, but you do need to be probably making, low to mid six figures, somewhere 200 or higher.
That's the lowest she's willing to go. I need some coffee, and I don't have any here, so I'll be back.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
That's good. All right, let's get back into this.
In order for us to have the lifestyle that I envision myself living, and mind you, I'm still working towards the lifestyle that I want to be living. But if I like to take vacations and I like to buy, diversify my investments and do all these different kinds of things,
right,
you need to be able to do that too, right? I'm not here just funding your lifestyle. We need to be able to do this together. And so naturally, you have to have some sort of cushion on your own before you come into my sphere, or before we can even really get along or be in the same tax bracket. But again, I wouldn't say he has to make more than me, but he does need to make close to it, or somewhere that would allow him to still be in that same area or same arena of what it is, of what my lifestyle is like and what I'm hoping it to be, right? Because the goal for me is at least to build generational wealth and you can do that from a full-time job. I work full-time, but I also have significant side hustles. And yeah, it takes a lot of time, but to me, it's worth it, right? Because I'm young, I have the time, I have the energy. And then later on in life, I'm just going to be able to chill and just live off of what the hard work that I've been putting in now. You had replied to this and also asked about splitting expenses and different things like that. I don't believe in, merging money or anything like that unless I am married, which I am not. And
Fair.
So I wasn't doing any of that. In terms of dating, I still do think a man, especially for the first few dates, needs to be paying for the dates. They need to be doing the courting, the courtship, all of that. To kind of sum up, because this is long, dating is a lot more difficult. Oh, you had also commented about where to meet them. I also made a video on this that some people didn't like, but In my experience, there's multiple ways to meet men who are high earners or whatever it is you want to call them. And one of the easiest and best ways is to change your environment, right? If you're only hanging around other high earners or only hanging around other professionals or entrepreneurs or people who are like-minded, that is going to become your circle of influence. That is going to become your norm. And so naturally you are going to meet those kinds of people. Like, for example, I was just at a conference and it was all attorneys. It was all big law attorneys. It was all in-house counsel, right? And I was just there and they're just around me, right? So that's an example. The weekend before I was at the Black Wealth Summit, like same thing, right? So being very intentional about the spheres that you're putting out and putting around yourself, your environment, who you're hanging around, who you're talking to, go to conferences, go to events, like do those different types of things where you're going to be in the space to meet those kinds of people.
Listen, I have to interject here real quick because this conversation right here, the first thing that popped in my mind was that video that I did a while back of Dr. Umar, who in most cases, you guys know, for me, Dr. Umar has become more of a comedian. This is not like disrespect. He's funny. There's a lot that I disagree with that he says, but in that last video, I agreed with a lot of what was said. And that came down to, of course, he specifically usually addresses Black women exclusively, and she's currently addressing dating as a Black woman. And so his question was, how willing are you to invest in a man who you see potential in? Previously on the Coffee Pot.
If you met a man who made half of what you made or a third of what you made, but he had a financial vision of an empire, a business, some sort of an entrepreneurial undertaking.
See, I think that's dangerous.
Stay with me. Stay
I
with
think that's
me.
dangerous.
Let me finish it, and then I want you to respond. And he needed you to help invest in his dream. And he gave you a definitive timeline. He said, give me 12 months, no more than that. If you invest in me, I promise you, I'm going to build will equal where you are. Would you have a problem investing in him?
What's the guarantee?
There is no guarantees in love. There is no guarantees in romance.
And
If
also,
you need a
I think
guarantee, you can't get in it.
context matters. How long
I
have
agree.
we been together?
Too often, Black women prioritize a man's income over his masculinity. But
This
you didn't
man?
answer the question. Let's say
Yeah.
all those things are there. Will you financially invest in him? Be honest, my queen.
She's already answered the question.
They already answered for you. They said hell to the nizzo.
And there was so much silence between when that question was asked until the silence was broken that he assumed she answered it with her silence, that she's not willing. And from what I hear, when I hear this chick, I hear she's not willing. So the next question is, should Black women not be able to say, I want a man who is a high earner, preferably 6 figures, 200K, 300K or more, maybe $500,000. Sure, you can want that. You can want that, but that still doesn't change the reality of the situation. We're getting to the coffee here, which is that men don't want that. High earning men don't want that. What don't they want? They don't want high earning women in most cases. They don't want a dummy. Of course, that's not what we're talking about here. We don't have to go to extremes, but they do not prioritize high economic attraction the same way that women do. And so the question is, then what happens to, because I don't want to just single out the woman who I'm reacting to here in this video. There are plenty of women with their mindset. What happens to those women? Well, this is when they choose to get a cat, get a dog, insert favorite pet, right? And end up alone.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
But you got to keep in mind here that if you're triggered by that, the key word is they choose to. Not saying this is what they deserve. I personally, at this point, when I hear people talk like this, I assume that they're well aware of their unrealistic expectations as a whole, women now. And so they're just purposefully saying, you know, I'm saying Sierra's prayer, right? I need some magic to happen here for me to find this man. And hey, you want to bet on that? Cool. But more and more women who are in her situation, or even the ones who don't even have that high earning income, but believe their high education, right, disqualifies them from other men who aren't as educated, they choose to end up alone. And that fits in perfectly with that future prediction of like 45% of women being single and childless by 2030. There's a clip by Dr. Hill, a renowned evolutionary social psychologist, and she had this to say about this exact same topic. Check it out.
There are an increasingly large number of women who are just choosing not to get married and are choosing to stay single. There's a mating crisis going on, and that women who are becoming increasingly college educated and getting access to resources of their own, that they do continue to exhibit an increased preference for partners with resources. Women are what we call hypergamous, right? Which means that we like to mate up in terms of achievement and educational attainment. And when you have a populace like we do in the US of women who are now on average more educated than men, it makes it more difficult to find a suitable partner. If you're a woman with an advanced degree and you want somebody who has at least as much education for you, that's going to lead to a more narrow pool of mates. And in fact, what we see is that there are an increasingly large number of women who are just choosing not to get married and are choosing to stay single. And in fact, there's a wonderful book called All the Single Ladies that is about this very phenomenon. And women are increasingly choosing to opt out of long-term mating if they're not able to find the relationship that they want.
And so what does that mean? Women would rather be alone. And so they'll call that, oh yeah, boss girl power, not settling. They would rather be alone than be with the man who does not perform better than them. And we're going to get back into her video there, but the chicks who are in this position, the high earners who are looking around and saying, all right, so where are these men? They really have two choices. And this is just the truth. They can either decide to, and I mean this is outside of the wishful thinking, the unicorn of a man who they're all competing and praying for. We're moving that aside, right? And getting back to reality here. Two options. The first is deciding I am going to be single for the rest of my life and accepting that. Don't be mad at me. She said it. They're choosing that. The second is deciding to suppress that hypergamous nature. And yes, you can suppress your nature to an extent. It's difficult, but you can. And so what does that look like? Well, when you wrap around the reality of the current dating market of women who are in this position, you think to yourself, all right, well, why don't I find a man? Because she says she wants to build generational wealth. Why don't I find a man who can help me get there? And he can fill in areas and have strengths in areas that I may be weak. Well, Chisha, I don't have any weaknesses. Yeah. And I'm looking for a man who's also perfect. I get it. And if you think that way, right, you're already lost. But I like to use Monique as a good example for this. Somebody who is definitely not a pushover. But when you see her interact with her husband, it is very obvious that she found a man who she can respect and submit to. Yes, submit to. Because he has attributes outside of what he may bring economically, right? Monetarily, that make him a good leader.
He's had all these hats. And a lot of Black women would say, why do you call him daddy? Because he's raising me. He's raising me. My father probably stopped giving me what I needed when I was around 13 years old. So now you got a woman that's 13 and now I'm 35 and now I got a bunch of money, what we consider to be a bunch of money. Let me just be real clear about that, okay? Now I got this money. Now I'm taking care of everybody. Who gonna check me, boo? Who gonna make me grow up? But when that man, when we were just best friends and when we got together, this is what he said to me. He said, when we were best friends and you were married to other men, you were not my responsibility. You were my sister, but not my responsibility. As my wife, you are my responsibility.
Now, of course, this takes probably a lot of intentionality on a woman's part, and it's difficult. But I believe there are women every day who chooses. Is it going to be the majority of the women? No, most of them are going to end up like Ebony K. Williams, IVF, single mother by choice, so on and so forth. And my next point is highly motivational to a lot of men and can be inspiring to a lot of women. Success, when people look at a successful man, they do see a man who's worked hard, who they can trust and lean on for leadership. Why? What about women? We're not talking about that right now. Stop it. Can we talk about the men for a little bit? When people see a successful man, any successful man, they never understand that a big portion of any man's success really comes down to preparation, meeting opportunity. And you never get to decide when that happens. There's a certain amount of luck when it comes to success in a lot of people's lives. It's not all luck. A lot of that is hard work. What are you trying to say, Chisha? Where are you getting at? Okay, Dr. Umar asked that lady on the podcast, would you invest in a man who you saw, right? He had a proven record. The scene was already set. You've been dating him for 2 years. You love him. He has a proven record of working hard. He has a plan, but all he needs is a bit of extra time and he's going to make it. But if you invest in him, you can make that happen quicker. You can invest in him and you have a relationship with that man. And I hear that, to me, that makes a lot of sense. You're already in a relationship with him and you love him, invest in the man. If you're willing to be in a relationship with him for the last 2 years, then you should be able to trust and bet on somebody who you love and care about. And no, this is not me saying men need to go find women who are willing to invest in them in order for their goals and achievements to come true. No, I'm not here promoting laziness. That's not what I'm saying. I am, however, saying there are a lot of men out here who are going to be successful, and you can have the opportunity to accelerate that success, invest early in the front end, and get repaid beautifully on the back end. And that preparation meeting opportunity could be meeting a good woman who's willing to invest in her man. You can be that opportunity for that man. He's going to get there regardless. That's how I look at it, right? He's not sitting there asking you to do it, but the unwillingness for a lot of these chicks to spot somebody who has talent, work ethic, and invest in them, it doesn't happen as much as I believe it should, and they would really reap very, very big if they did that in the long run. I look at something like YouTube. How many YouTubers do you know that came out of COVID during the lockdown? That's a perfect example of preparation meeting opportunity. A lot of those content creators who blew up around that time, they'd been making content for years before that. And then finally, the opportunity presented itself with people who were inside their homes and they blew up. And if it wasn't for that moment and them being prepared, then they wouldn't have had that opportunity to be where they're at right now. And listen, this does happen. This does happen. There are women every day who find a good man and say, my husband worked hard. I invest in his business. Now I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have to worry about that. I'm not saying that's your end goal or has to be your end goal. I'm saying that those are opportunities. I've reported on them here on the Coffee Pod that happen all the time. Too many women miss out on those opportunities. Let's keep listening.
And if you're living somewhere that doesn't allow you to be in that kind of space, then you got to figure out a way to get up and get out and go put yourself in that kind of space or make some friends genuinely, because nobody wants like the fake stuff, to be able to cultivate that kind of experience for yourself. And that's what I found most helpful.
Okay, let's see. What else do we have here?
I do think it is a lot harder to date as a woman high earner, and especially as a Black woman.
I mean, shocker. Now, Shad is like a big time lawyer. She says she make like 40 bands a month. She make really good money. And she's looking for a man to be in the same stratosphere as her economically or financially. And then on top of that, you want him to treat you, you know what I'm saying, or go about as if, like you're a regular chick. Like you want to be treated like a regular chick who isn't a boss bee. Like a lot of the guys who are going to be making, she said she wants between $200,000 to $350,000 men earning. Most of those guys aren't going to be with a woman who gets to yap, and have a bunch of control in the relationship. The same way she says she doesn't need a man, those men don't need you. They just need you to be there, look pretty, and be quiet. That said, there's not even a lot of men who are in that top 3. There's not a lot of people in this country who are in that top 3% of earners. Like, as a man, if you skip out on your way to the top on finding you a woman to build with and you get to said top, you're likely to find women, and you're going to have to settle as a man and understand that you're probably going to have to find a woman who is looking at you for your resources. And you just kind of got to bite the bullet on that one. And a lot of guys do. On the flip side, as a woman who becomes that high earner, y'all don't like to bite the bullet when it comes to what y'all have to give up and y'all have to sacrifice in terms of picking a partner. And as a woman,
And so then what happens? And so they choose to be alone. And then this introduces a conversation of, well, why can't women be breadwinners, right? We thought there was no difference between men and women. We thought that they don't want traditional dynamics within a relationship, right? I don't want to sit down and shut up. I don't want to sit down and shut up. And I'm not saying that, that's an extreme example. If you're in a healthy relationship, your husband is going to make sure that as a leader, you can rest assured that he's taking what you want strongly into consideration and wants what's best for you and the whole family, but it's not all about you, right? Even when you may disagree with his decision and the direction he wants to go. But what is it?
Woman who's pulling in $40,000 a month, $250,000, $300 something thousand earning a year plus extra, whatever she do. Money shouldn't be a concern. It's not a concern. Like, you should be, I'm not saying get with a bum, but you just should be looking for a stability and a man to love you for who you are, right? But y'all always want it all. Y'all want it all. You want to have the career. You want to barely put into your relationship, but you want a man to be 100% faithful, honest, and listen to your opinion and da-da-da-da. And he got to have money too. He got to have a helicopter. He got to fuck a corn star. He got to do all these different things. And a lot of y'all just don't probably be the type of woman y'all think y'all are as far as romantically. And a lot of women who earn money like that and are boss bees are exactly equivalent to the male version that do the same thing. Y'all's entire personality be y'all careers, y'all money, and y'all accomplishments. I don't know why women think that they're different than the men who get to that. A lot of men who get to that point. You ever talk to those guys and their entire personality is their money, their accomplishments, and their careers. Nothing outside, no personality outside of that. A lot of y'all women are those men. You just got. But on the flip side,
well, it's the whole thing of that's how feminism lied to women, right? Is that they told them that once you get there, you'll be equal to men, right? And have everything men have. But what they left out is you will become the men who you'd otherwise be attracted to.
When men are that way, there's a certain type of woman that will ignore that and just go with it because they want his resources. When men hear that from women, it's just a turnoff. It's just a turnoff. But men, we could tell y'all this shit all day, every day, but y'all don't want to listen. Y'all ain't gonna want to hear it, and you're just gonna be hard-headed. Oh well, buy a dog.
So the question is simple here. Are you going to train your mind and suppress that hypergamous side of yourself and understand that the man you want is almost an impossibility? But it's possible. Yes, sure, anything's possible. Is it probable? Very unlikely. And so the choice is yours. Do you do the Monique thing and find a guy who can make up and still be that leader, right? Men bring things outside of just financial resources, and you can adapt to this current modern dynamic, or you can choose to be alone, like a lot of women will be, which just puts more women back in the dating market. And those top men now have more women to run through. And men really win here at the end of this whole thing, which is the coffee.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
Gentlemen, of course, if you're engaged, soon to be married, make sure you head over to fathershaverights.com and check out the #1 guide to drafting a solid and legally binding prenuptial agreement. Listen, I'm talking to you. Too many people sit there, complain, because I've done polls. I know a lot of you guys out here engaged. I see the guys in there who are thankful that they have access to resources to help them. If you don't know where to start with free information. The whole first module is free. Your guide to drafting a solid and legally binding prenuptial agreement. Listen, I appreciate you guys. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.